materials. When I'm dancing in water is not at all the same as when I'm dancing high on a steel girder. It's very, very different. And so I think that it taps into all these different parts of, what we call ourselves, our bodies, and their potential.
And then if you do the flat surface or a tilt.
Please use the microphone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. We're recording this, so.
Just the difference between walking on a flat surface or walking on a hill or trying to deal with a cliff. Your body needs to adapt in unexpected ways. So it's a fresh movement experience. It's not a technique. And I think that breaks down another barrier that's very important, is that traditionally in dance, we have various techniques. This technique or that technique or that technique. But when you're dancing in an environment, you have the possibility of breaking away from that restriction and that habit. And that can be exciting.
The technique is really to be flexible and expanding into it and be responsive. Yeah.
I think that's what I was getting at with my question. Yeah. So let's open it up to the audience. I know lots of people have things to say. So.
Hello, I dance in the piece with Iron, and actually I just wanted to say that so the video for me doesn't reflect enough what happened, because we did it a lot of time during the day. So we start to have a context, and we dance in a context, and we really start to feel at home. So the audience came, and they were almost disturbing by the fact that we were at home. And so in between performances, we had some break, and we really hung around like we were at home. So the process itself, I feel, give this idea of, site-specific. As a performer, I felt at home in my bed, not with my boyfriend, but in my bed.
Someone else's boyfriend. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to come and listen to the talk about site-specific, because last year the most enjoyable dancing I saw was the San Francisco trolley dances. And I realized they are highly choreographed, but they were so enjoyable. And so after tonight, I'm wondering, is that a different type of site-specific dancing? Is there, am I going to see different categories of site-specific dancing, like some of what I saw tonight? So I'm just, because I really fell in love with that dancing last year, but now I realize there's a lot more to site-specific dancing, and I guess I have a lot more to learn, so.
Well, I mean, partly I would just say there's probably a continuum, or there's stuff for stage, and all the way to, I feel like in a way what you're seeing here is fairly extreme examples, if you want to put it that way, that are far away from proscenium dancing, and there's plenty of stuff in between that's a little more like you just take closer to stage dancing and put it in a different environment and keep the audience relationship the same, for example, so that it doesn't, not everything is exploded all at once necessarily. Anyone else want to add to that?
That's a wonderful festival it's a wonderful festival that you're referring to, and the beauty of it is that Kim, who produces it, tries to find areas that people normally don't go to, and so you follow this path into, the great unknown of San Francisco neighborhoods, and all of these new places are revealed to you. And they're not, these super spectacular, now we're going to go to the Golden Gate Bridge. They're neighborhoods and little corners of the city, which are not necessarily well explored. Although, there was Market Street. She did Market Street, but often you went just off of Market Street into these smaller areas that you might not normally explore. So it's really a wonderful festival.
I also kind of think that for site-specific dance, even if it's not so far removed from the way, like if it's not choreographed so differently from how it would be in the theater, is still a really completely different experience when you take it to a site, especially if you encounter it by surprise, you're walking down the street, you see it, like even if somebody brought a stage piece outside, it sort of becomes site specific, it starts to respond to the site naturally, and I think, so there is that continuum that Mary was talking about, and I also just think there's different artists, so everybody's site specific work is going to be totally different, I hope.
Excuse me, about that, about taking a stage piece out into the environment and that automatically responding differently. I'm wondering how that's different than moving a piece that was built for a stage that's 6 meters by 7 meters to a stage that is 2 meters by 3 meters, because the performers are still responding to wings being in different places, the props or the decorations being different. How moving theaters, moving props, and responding to your environment while you're performing, whether it's on stage or not, how is that not site-specific?
I guess my feeling about that is that for the audience, it's a very different experience, like all the things that you see, and also as a, you know, I've performed in Venue 9 and on Yerba Buena stage and whatever, and like it is different, but I think that as performers, we know that space. It is, each theater does have its own characteristics, but in a way, you know that it is that like blank space, and you do, like, you know, some theaters have a lumpy floor or whatever, but like your relationship to the audience remains very similar, and so like I feel like I can come on to any empty stage and have that sort of like chorus line, whatever it is, feeling of the floodlights and whatever, and I am performing to you, and I could have that on a stage of any size, whereas once you take yourself out of that like space that's very comfortable for us, you have to open up something different in order to respond.
I mean, isn't that what Anna is talking about in the sense of that the stage space is an illusion? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Joanna.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned when we were at the house that I was giving you a demonstration of something. I noticed that when we're indoors in the studio and the participants reach up and they think this is up, but when they go outside and up becomes a very different experience, and you see their bodies go like that. So everything changes internally.
I was just thinking about, because I'm just about to make a piece for a theater or theaters, which I don't do very often, and you know, I used to think, oh, it's just not that interesting. But a few years ago, I discovered, I thought about the theater, and I wondered, why wasn't I thinking of it more as a site? Why was I so consumed by the fact that it was a stage over there and then the people sat over there? And it actually is a site. So when it comes with its own package of meaning, and people come and they have expectations, they've defined what it is, and there's air moving through it, there's colors, there's, you know, there's so much as a site, and it has really a long history, no matter where it is in terms of, you know, what theater is, that manipulating and working with those ideas became fascinating, and so the work was suddenly unfolding in a new way, and I'm not thinking in such a confined way. Of course, now I'm making it more complicated, and now the theaters don't want me to come in because it's going to be too complicated. But now it's a different relationship, and it can do things that are very different from, you know, an outdoor environment that I think can be equally as engaging if you are conscious of that. Often you go to a stage and you think about it as, say, there I am on this, you know, this platform over there, and it has lights and so on, but you forget about the fact that people walked off of a street and they came through a lobby and what that lobby experience was like, and then they moved through, and then they moved through this, and if you become conscious of that and you start to shape, you know, add that into what you are shaping, that the experience becomes much broader